Kids, they're so lucky, aren't they? They can learn a language with no effort, in no time at all. Whereas I've been studying Spanish for years, and there are 10-year-olds who can speak better than me. The little devils. But is that really true? Do children have this magic ability to learn a language, while adults will never really get a good level no matter how hard they try? Well, today I'm going to answer both those questions and also look into what we can learn from children to improve the way that we as adults learn a second language. So yes, there are some cognitive advantages that children have over adults when learning a language. And babies and children make neural connections at a faster pace. And as we get older, the brain becomes more specialized, which makes it more efficient, but unfortunately it makes it more difficult to learn new things. And there's also this critical age range for learning. It's like a time window. Depending on the study you look at, it basically says from a very young age, from babies until puberty, that's the critical age range. And after puberty, it's much more difficult to learn new things, language in particular. But that's not everything, and I wouldn't use that as an excuse just to say, oh no, I'm an adult, I can't learn a language to a high level, it's impossible. No, maybe it's a little more difficult, but now we're going to look at some things we can learn from children, some advantages they have, but they're not biological or neurological advantages. They are things that we can copy from them or learn from them to improve our learning experience. So the first one we're going to look at is that children are basically fearless. So I've said many times before in previous videos that in my experience that fear is the biggest barrier to learning a second language, or really to speaking a second language. And children don't have that fear in general. They have no fear of humiliation, of ridicule, of embarrassment. So, young children just speak and make mistakes and learn from the mistakes very quickly. Adults tend to have a lot more inhibitions and are always worried about how they will appear in front of others if they make mistakes. Children don't have that, so we can learn from children in that. Just try to lose the fear. In a previous video I looked at that in more detail, so I'm not going to go into any more detail today. But the second point, it's the motivation. Children are extremely motivated to learn a language because they need to express themselves, to express their necessities, and to understand what their parents or other adults or other children are communicating to them. It's a very strong motivation. It's a real driver of their learning process. Whereas many adults don't have that motivation. Maybe it's important to learn English, for example, but it's not essential. It's not something that you can't survive without. For children, it's a necessity. So that's a huge motivation. So another thing we can learn from children is make the language learning process a priority. And the third point is time. Children generally have a lot of time to dedicate to learning a language, or acquiring a language, I should say, not so much learning, because then they don't study, they just acquire the language naturally. That's all they do. When they're babies, they don't do much more, apart from eat, sleep, and the other bodily necessities. So yeah, they're all day just absorbing what they're hearing, making noises, seeing what reaction different noises make. So again, adults, maybe of course we can't dedicate so much time to learning a language, but the more time you can dedicate to it, the more benefit you will get, the faster you will see the improvement. And the next one, listening skills. Children don't really start speaking until 18 months, more or less, or 2 years, depending on the child. So all they're doing until then is listening, just absorbing. That's the only part of the learning process they're doing. So absorbing the sounds they're hearing. It's all they dedicate that time to, that we just spoke about, is listening. And I think many adults forget to listen or forget to really pay attention. More importantly, we're always thinking about what we're going to say, how we can contribute to the conversation, or trying to process the information rather than just relaxing and listening and absorbing. So that's a very important factor that we can learn from children. And this next one is extremely important. It's to learn by experience. So children are just constantly learning by experience, and they have more emotional connections to what they're learning. So if it's through play, through the communication with their parents, so maybe I want food, I want to eat, I need to use the toilet, or I want to play with this, or it's a song or a cartoon on television, or playing with their friends. They have an emotional connection to what they are learning, which adults tend to lose. We don't learn a language in an emotional way. It's a very cold way of learning a language, usually with an exercise book, studying, try to learn the grammar, remember the rules, learn how to pronounce the words in a certain way. And we lose that emotional connection, which is extremely important, to be able to remember vocabulary, remember how to form sentences. So to do it through context and not just through translating. Children don't translate what they are trying to say in their head or what they're learning. Okay, all of those factors can be summarized really in one word, and that word is immersion. Those factors of the fear, time, motivation, listening, learning by experience, they can all be improved through immersion. So if you just immerse yourself in the language you are learning, you will see an improvement. And remember that language is acquired, it's lived, it's not learned, it shouldn't be learned or studied, it should be acquired and lived. Just before we finish, I wanted to talk about a couple of advantages that adults actually have over children. So we're always talking about how children are lucky, they can learn a language magically with no effort. But adults have some advantages. For example, adults can be analytical. Children can be analytical, but not in the same way as adults. So we analyze the grammar, the vocabulary, the pronunciation that we're seeing or hearing, which has advantages. If we can analyze what we are seeing and hearing, then it has great benefit to our chances of remembering what we're learning. And also we can reflect. As I've said before, also that learning is experience plus reflection. So if you don't reflect, then you're missing a big opportunity to really understand a language better. And also, adults, we understand the objectives to learning a language, which helps us to focus on the direction we're going. So those 3 points are to give you some optimism that we have some advantages over children. Children don't have it all their way. Okay, I hope you found this video useful. Like and subscribe if you did, and join me in the future for another video. Take care, bye.